Hello everybody, I am NicoD. Today I am glad to say that I'm back with a new single board computer. So this is the most powerful ARM single board computer that I ever held in my hands. So I am very happy with it. So this is the Khadas VIM4. So this is the newer version of the Khadas VIM3. I also have got the Khadas VIM2. I will make a separate video where I compare these. So the Khadas VIM3 has the AMLogic A311D SoC, while this has got the AMLogic A311D2. So the only difference in the numbering is the 2, but there is a big difference between both SoCs. So they are not compatible, which means new software has to be written for this. So this is really a crazy board if we compare it with the Khadas VIM3. So the Khadas VIM3 had 6 cores, so 2 cores A53 at 1.8 GHz and 4 A73 cores at 2.2 GHz. This also has these 4 cores at 2.2 GHz, but it now also has got 4 A53 cores clocked at 2 GHz. So that makes this a lot more powerful, but it isn't the only thing. So this one came with 2 GB or 4 GB of RAM. This only comes with 8 GB of RAM. So that is great, having 8 GB on an ARM SBC with 8 cores. So this is really the most powerful ARM CPU that I ever held in my hands. So for me this is just awesome. So people who follow my channel for a long time know that I love to go on vacation, on cycling trips, and that I take my ARM SBCs with me to watch videos, to watch movies, to check the internet, and also to edit and render videos on the fly. So with this that is possible, and I can use a power bank for it. Do know that this board is still at early stages, so the software ain't great for it yet. There is a Ubuntu image for it and there is an Android image for it. The Ubuntu image doesn't have panfrost, so no GPU drivers, so only the CPU is available to work on. And the Android version doesn't have Google Play Store. I wasn't able to install it, but I'm not good at using Android, so I will make a later video about Android when things are better there. So the cool thing with this board is that I have got a new system to install images. It is called Oh Wow. This is really awesome, so you can do a lot of things with it. So for example, you can back up the image that is already on your eMMC and you can write it onto an SD card. I have got an SD card in here with 3 images on. So I've got 1 Android image, I have got 2 Ubuntu images, Ubuntu 22.04 and Ubuntu 20.04. So I can just switch images. If I am tired of the image that is on here, I can install another image, first back up the image that is on here onto my SD card and then install another image. So it is quite like dual boots, but it takes a bit more time than a real dual boot. I do like this system a lot. You can do a lot with it. You can even play games in it. So I will show you how that works. For the software, I will make a later video about Linux on the Khadas VIM4 when Linux has improved. I was hoping that AMLogic would have made this SoC compatible with the earlier SoC from the Khadas VIM3, but it isn't. So a lot of new software has to be written for it. And that is a bit a pity, so we will have to wait until things are great software wise. So why am I so happy to have this board? Well, one of my first single board computers was this, the Odroid XU4. This had 8 cores and they were clocked pretty high, also at 2 GHz. And that was a monster. That really is such a great SBC. I've used it for many years and it was for many years the most powerful board that I've had. Then another board that I bought was this. So this is the Nano PC T3 Plus. Also one of my favorite boards when it was new. So this was more powerful than the RK3399. Only the Odroid N2 Plus and the Khadas VIM4 beat this board. So this also is an 8-core board. It can be clocked to 1.6 GHz with all 8 cores. So this was really very powerful. But then for many years we didn't get any other great 8-core ARM single board computers. So I am so happy to have this board. There is also the ROG 5 coming out with the RK3588. I am waiting on that, but while I'm waiting, I can review this board. So I will show you, oh wow, how it works, how you can install new images. For now there are not many images that I can use, so I only have got the Ubuntu and Android images. So here we go! So let's first go over the specs. So I will start at the bottom left and then go clockwise. So first we see the USB 3 port. So it only has got one USB 3 port and it can give up to 1.5 amps. Then we see the gigabit Ethernet. This also works with Wake on LAN. Then the HDMI output. Then USB-C for power. So this can be powered with 5 volts up to 12 volts. Then the USB 2 port. This also can give 1.3 amps. This is really good. Then we see the power with modulation fan header. Then reset button, the function button, power button and RTC header. Then a 40-pin GPIO header. There is a digital microphone on the board. A special thing here, so this board has got HDMI input. Then we see the LED. Then programmable MCU. Then the antennas, so for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi there are 2 antennas. Current limit switch. I can already say there is no problem with the Wi-Fi and USB 3. This used to be a problem on the Khadas VIM4. Here there is no problem. And on the bottom of the board we first see the VIN, so this is an alternate way to power the board. Then we see the SD card reader. Then we see the M.2 slot. So you can have an NVMe head for it, but it doesn't fit in the case. That is a pity. I don't have any spare working NVMe drives yet, so I will have to order one to test this later on. Then on the bottom we see the MIPI CSI, again MIPI CSI, then a MIPI DSI for a display, and then a V/1 also for a display. Then the X power pads, the SPI flash, again the current limit switch, and a G sensor. So I already told you that this comes with the Amlogic A311D2, so 4 times Cortex A73 at 2.2 GHz and 4 times Cortex A53 at 2 GHz. The GPU is a Mali G52 MP8, so this compared to the Mali G52 MP4 for the Khadas VIM4 and the Odroid N2 Plus. It supports 8K hardware decoding at 24 frames a second and low latency 4K encoding 50 frames a second. So I'm not gonna read it all. The important thing is the RAM, so 8GB LPDDR4X. So this is better RAM than the Khadas VIM4 had, and it is 8GB and it is 64 bits. This is important. So the bus line is 64 bits instead of the 32-bit of the Khadas VIM4 or Odroid N2 Plus. I expect this to have a big influence when you are using the GPU. So the eMMC is an eMMC 5.1, 32GB. Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi 6. Bluetooth is Bluetooth 5.1. It is gigabit Ethernet with Wake on LAN. It has got an SD card reader, as I already said, and it has got one USB 2 port and one USB 3 port. When nothing is installed on the eMMC, it automatically boots into OWOW, but when something is installed, you have to press the middle button, you keep it pressed, and then you power it on, or you press the reset button and you keep pressed the middle button, then it will boot into OWOW. So here we are in OWOW. So first you can connect your Wi-Fi, but for me that is already done. So here the first thing I see is installation of an image. So here you can choose from 3 images to install from the internet. So these are only the images that are available before launch. So after launch I expect there to be a lot more. But for now I'm not gonna install any image yet. So let's go to cancel. So here we are in the main menu of OWOW. So the wizard is to install images from the internet. So then we have got write image to eMMC. That is when you have got an image on the SD card and you can write it onto the eMMC. Then dump image from the eMMC. So that is backing up the image that is installed on the eMMC. So you can write that to an SD card. Then device configure KBI. There you can do a lot of things. Then network, to configure your network or your Wi-Fi. And system. So here you can update OWOW and get some device information. So I've got 8 CPU cores, 8 GB of RAM and 32 GB of eMMC. Then online scripts, then advanced. So here you can do advanced things. Then get fun. So here you've got a few small games. So for example here is Tetris. That is one of my favorite games of all times. So I've lost a few hours on this only. Well, I had bad luck. It's nothing about skills, just bad luck. So now let's install an image. So I go back and go to the wizard, continue, and let's install Ubuntu 22.04 with the GNOME desktop. So this comes with kernel 5.4. Too bad it isn't 5.10, because then it would be possible to use Panfrost, the GPU driver. So this doesn't have any GPU drivers or VPU drivers. So here you can download it from the servers from Khadas. And when it is downloaded, you can install it right onto your eMMC. Do know that it erases everything that was installed on your eMMC. So back up your eMMC if anything is installed that you want to save. For now there are only images for eMMC, but I hope by the time it will launch there will also be SD images. So here we boot into Ubuntu. Do know this is a rough image, it is still new. If you need GPU drivers and VPU drivers, then wait a bit or buy an RK3399 because those have it. So to log in the first time the password is Khadas. So the first thing I do is change the password. So I open a terminal, I type passwd and the current password is Khadas and I give it 2 times a new password. And I do the same for the root, so sudo passwd and I also type 2 times a new password. And then I can connect my Wi-Fi. So I first did sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade to be up to date. And then the next thing I did was install the Mati system monitor. So here you can see all 8 cores in action. So this is a lovely sight. It has been a while since I've seen this 8 cores. My PC does have 8 cores and 16 threads, but it is something else when you see it from an ARM SBC. So one problem with this image, there is no internet browser, so Firefox doesn't work, Chromium doesn't work. This isn't Khadas their fault, this is Ubuntu their fault. They switched Firefox to Snap and it doesn't work. So for that I installed the Vivaldi browser. So I downloaded it with this. The easiest way to install it is to use GDebi, but I did it with dpkg and I had an error. but I could fix it after doing sudo apt fix install. This browser does work pretty well. Even without GPU drivers or VPU drivers, you can watch video at 1080p very well, so there are no dropped frames. Yippee! I just didn't want to stay at home. An amazing movie. I'm listening with my headphones because it gets loud from time to time. And even at 1440p it works pretty well. So this is all done with the CPU, so the GPU doesn't do anything and certainly no VPU. So this is the advantage of having such a powerful CPU. It can do a lot with CPU alone. And this doesn't consume a lot, so I don't care if I need to use the CPU to watch video. And my video editing programs can only make use of the CPU, so it is great to have such a powerful CPU for my video editing. Not everybody needs this, but for me it is awesome. Then some benchmarks. So here the NicoD Blender benchmark. All is done with Ubuntu Jammy with Blender 3.0.1. So the Khadas VIM4 does it in 5 minutes and 3 seconds. So that is really crazy compared to the Raspberry Pi 400 at 1.8 GHz, which does it in 13 minutes and 15 seconds. The Odroid HC4 did it in 16 minutes 35 seconds. The NanoPi M4 with the RK3399 does it in 9 minutes and 50 seconds. The Raksha Zero does 15 minutes and 52 seconds over this. So the Khadas VIM4 really is a beast when it can unleash all its cores. Then the same benchmark but done on Ubuntu Vocal with Blender 2.8.2. So the Khadas VIM3 does this in 9 minutes 42 seconds, the Khadas VIM4 does this in 7 minutes and 22 seconds, and my old Intel i5 2500K did this in 4 minutes and 10 seconds. So the Khadas VIM4 is closing down on the 10-year-old x86 PC. But it ain't there yet. To know that my old PC was consuming 200 watts while doing this, while the Khadas VIM4 consumes 7 watts while doing this. So it doesn't consume more than the Khadas VIM3 and it is about 20% more powerful. While in idle it only consumes 3 watts. And here the 7-zip results. So I only look at the small cores, but if we look at all cores it also shows it is very powerful. It even beats my old i5 2500K here with 7-zip. So the single core performance is the best of all ARM single board computers, so it has got 2407 on the big cores, 1850 on the small cores. So that is better than the Khadas VIM3, while it has 2 more cores. So compared to the RK3399 of the NanoPi M4, it also outperforms it amazingly. This is at the default clocks. The NanoPi M4 can be clocked to 2 GHz, then it would get 2000 with the big cores, but it still doesn't come close to the Khadas VIM4. Then the Raspberry Pi 400 with an overclock of 2 GHz, it gets 2000 with the big cores single core and 8171 with all cores. So the Khadas VIM4 is about 2 times as powerful as the Raspberry Pi 400. So it is pretty amazing. This CPU is really very powerful. I do wonder how it compares with the RK3588, but I don't have it yet, so I cannot compare it. Then the transfer speeds. So the eMMC is pretty fast. So the read is 179 megabytes a second and the write is 173 megabytes a second. The access time is 0.17 milliseconds. So this is important for small files. So the SD card reader is 80 megabytes a second. This is pretty fast, and the write is 32 megabytes a second. So the access time is 0.35 milliseconds. This is with a SanDisk Extreme of 128 gigabytes. And then the USB 3 is a bit lacking, so this is 321 megabytes a second read and 286 megabytes a second write. So this isn't very good. I think I remember this was the same on the Khadas VIM4, so the USB 3 isn't very fast. I wasn't able to test the NVMe since none of my NVMe drives work, or the working ones are all in my PC. Now you can use the USB 3 and the NVMe at the same time, so that is very good. I'm gonna order an NVMe drive. Please become a Patreon if you want to support me, because this costs money. I will make a lot more videos about the Khadas VIM4. For me this is really a perfect board. It has got 8 gigabytes of RAM, it has got a super fast CPU, so for me, for video editing on the road, it is really great. I made this video a week early, so now I can go on a trip, and you will see this video a week later when the Khadas VIM4 is released. So thank you to the Khadas team for giving me the Khadas VIM4. It is a really great board. I forgot to say, it doesn't overheat, so with this fan it stays always under 60 degrees Celsius, whatever load you give it. So that is awesome, it doesn't overheat, it doesn't consume much, it is very powerful. I can't say anything bad about this board, just the USB 3 isn't performing as USB 3 could perform. So this board is great to use as a TV box, it is great to use as a light server, it is great for light desktop tasks, but it doesn't have GPU drivers yet, so it is waiting for it to be mainlined. So when it is mainlined, we will have mainline images with the GPU drivers. I hope the GPU drivers will work quickly, since it is the same GPU as the Khadas VIM3. Now on the Khadas VIM3 the GPU drivers work pretty well with kernel 5.17. So that will be it, the video is already so long. So thank you all for watching, please like the video, subscribe to my channel. See you all later, bye!